open with the three of us. Then it'll be the break. Then it'll be the intro video. Dan and I doing our opening spiel, and then we introduce you and bring you back in.
But if I want to pick my nose during your opening spiel, I don't have to worry about people seeing it.
Yeah, well, you know if you're on camera, because if you see yourself on the show, you're on camera.
Gotcha. Okay.
You can't confuse it.
I'll take that as my cue.
The main video window is what's on the air. So you
right.
Be very careful not to do that while we're live.
Right. And so normally we have a director, but she has back pain today.
Oh,
so
she's in pain.
So we're
why George do I get shafted with the no director, broken refrigerator? Come on.
It's a retrograde Mercury, clearly.
What the hell, man?
Yeah, our toilet spray thing sprung a leak this morning.
Oh, nice. Good. Remind me not to take the October 30th show next year.
My girlfriend dumped a full cup of water last night on both her MacBook and iPhone simultaneously.
Oh
no! Did they survive?
Yeah, the computer lid was shut, so it rolled off, and But yeah, it's just like it's all happening right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're live now so that we can have a little pre-show banter that the audience will engage with. They know we're on air. They can confirm they can hear us.
Right. So can you guys hear us? Let us know. Just put it in the chat room there.
And then when we play any video packages, we won't be heard anymore. But we have the private chat on one of the sides of the window.
Yeah.
If you click that, we can communicate to each other offline.
Right on.
While something else is going on. So
in
that's
words,
where we'll be like
here.
That's where we'll say goodbye, because when we're done the interview, there's no post-show wrap-up thing. We say goodbye, and
you can go on your merry way.
Yeah.
Then I can log out and just piss off.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't put it like that, but yeah.
You can close the browser window tab, and it's gone, just
right
like
on.
that.
And then George and I do another hour of tech talk, and
we do a whole another hour after that.
But we do it live, so we get live questions. But then we just chop it, make it 2 shows, and
nice.
And then next week it's Tech Talk number 113.
Nice.
Yeah, 2 shows produced back to back one night.
So what does that mean? You get together live twice a month then instead of every week?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
that's a good way to do it.
Turned out to make more sense.
Yeah,
it was hard to sustain essentially a 2-hour live show every single week.
It's a lot, huh?
And keep good content going. And
right. So. Well, we were doing an hour and a half. It was then we tried to cut it down to an hour, and then George and I would talk for 20-25 minutes, and then we'd bring the guest in, and then the guest would invariably talk for another 45 minutes, whether we wanted them to or not. And that's when we decided, why don't we just do 2 shows? Yeah. And
smart.
We'll just edit it, and that way it'll always be perfect, which is never the way people expect.
Yeah, it can become such a full-time job, when you're doing that. And if you're doing it on a weekly basis, it goes 2 hours, and you've got to prep for the show. I mean, it's one thing to, improv a bit, but you've got to prepare. You got to know who you're talking to or have topics to get into, so it's substantive. And it can become a full-time job for sure.
Yeah. I do a lot of that work over the weekend,
Good.
I have to come up with the promo, the picture I put, throw into Facebook and LinkedIn and where else? Where else do I put it? Share it with a bunch of people, and then, and come up with copy to saying, here's, it's going to be our guest. Here's what we're going to talk about, join us live or catch the replay, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I got to write that stuff up and then post all that. And that's usually during the Sunday morning talk shows. And I'd rather be listening to what all these stupid politicians were saying than doing that. And my wife is like, what are you doing? I got to get this shit out. Anyway. So anyhow, all right, let's see.
Where are you in town, EJ? Which neighborhood?
Tarzana.
He's in Tarzana.
Tarzana? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And why is Tarzana was named? Because what's his name?
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Edgar Rice Burroughs lived there. That's right.
Whose family estate office is still here down on Ventura.
Really?
Yeah, the estate is still run from the same office down in Ventura. Lovely little place, actually.
I'm sure.
And for those who don't know And for those who don't know what that is or who that is he the actor?
No,
No,
he
the
wrote
author.
Tarzan.
Oh,
He
the
wrote
author.
Tarzan.
He wrote Tarzan. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Along with John Carter and, the Barzoom series and lots of really cool stuff. Basically invented the sword and planet genre, which is a subgenre of sci-fi where they,
Oh, really?
combined. That's what John Carter is. That whole idea of like, almost like medieval fighting with sci-fi monsters on different planets.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Swords and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's wild. It was all his property. This, Tarzan is like this wedge that, goes, if you know the area, it goes, south of Ventura up into the hills. We're at like 1,200 feet. And you've got Braemar up here and El Caballero and all that. And yeah, he had this whole property and then got developed. There are a lot of orchards for a long time. There's one that still exists. If you've ever driven past it, really massive property down closer to Ventura.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, so that's where the Caballero Trail name came from.
Yeah.
I guess so. I'm not sure which came first though, but
Yeah. I've hiked that.
have you?
Yeah.
It gets
And I
progressively
have friends who live up there, up at, right above Braemar. There's that community that's up there where, if you have dogs, coyotes are just waiting.
Exactly. We have coyotes in the yard a lot. That's why we have big dogs.
I got one little dog.
Yeah, no, it's not a little dog friendly area. It's
The
really not.
Caballero Trail is no joke. That thing gets steeper and steeper, and it's pretty rutted. I mean, we mountain bike it, and it's
Oh, do you?
it's,
Yeah.
it's sketchy.
It's intense. Did you ever go to did you ever make it to the caves that are at the top of Van Alden?
Yeah, the Van Alden Trail caves. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah, we went there
crazy.
a couple weeks ago, actually.
So crazy.
I know.
And there's
all
that little
those
trail that
things.
goes over the roof of the caves where, like, if you don't watch, you could fall through.
Yeah,
But
there's a bunch
it's
of
such a
holes in the
wild
top
spot.
of it.
Yeah, there's holes in the top. Yeah. And then
Where
you can
exactly
kind of
is
make
that?
your way through the brambles up to the dirt Mulholland Fire Road. And we hike up there a lot because we're exactly 1 mile from the entrance to where Mulholland is. Like if we go up
Right.
Greenbrier, and it's gorgeous. It is just amazing. You're
Yeah.
right on the saddle of the mountains and you can see off to the west side. And
Right.
Yeah, we're lucky to have
It's
all that
incredible.
open space right in Los Angeles.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I
Even
mean,
here at the house, I always say to people, you never believe you're in the city of LA when you're up here. It
Mhm.
really is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you just head up the 101 and suddenly it's just a totally different place.
Yeah.
You're heading up into, just even the Calabasas or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
lived in Topanga for a while. Talk about feeling detached from the city. I mean, you
Topanga's
really,
different. Yeah.
yeah, you were like really like, you weren't that far, but it felt far.
Yeah.
Especially if the bottom of the mountain of the bottom of the canyon closed off because of a
Which happens a lot.
mudslide.
Yep.
You really felt detached from the rest of the city.
Yep. Yeah, they get cut off. It's rare that it gets cut off on both sides and there's ways to get out of there. But yeah, it's wild. PCH closes over there a lot, when you get those crazy rainy seasons. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it's supposed to be one of those this year, which is okay.
It just was one of those.
It was. Well, this spring was really wet.
Yeah.
But even with that wind yesterday, there were no fires or anything. So,
I know. I actually, from the house, we could see a couple of super soakers, and we were wondering. They flew kind of close, and they were in formation. We're like, oh boy, are they? But I think they were just in preparation. I don't think anything was going on. But yeah,
just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. This is
It was
your
intense.
announcer.
We were like
Just in
45
case.
mile per hour gusts yesterday.
Yeah, it was humping down here. And it usually this is, here in Sherman Oaks, this is like the most protected part of the valley.
Yeah.
Except for heat. It gets hot here.
It gets a little toasty.
Just a bit, which is why we now have a swim spa, which is at a nice 82 degrees.
There you go.
No matter what's
nice.
going on, into the swim spa.
You guys know I'm a pilot? Did we ever talk about that?
No.
Yeah, I'm a
What do you
pilot.
fly?
So I Cessnas. But I flew on Sunday. I'm sorry, I flew on Saturday because I knew the storm was coming on Sunday. So I got out there. I just did a flight on Saturday afternoon because the wind event, the National Weather Service was reporting like we were going to get nailed, and the forecast was right. We got blasted. You did not want to be in the air yesterday afternoon.
No.
Which airport? How do you fly?
Van Nuys.
You fly,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I fly out of Van Nuys.
All righty. It is 5:00 and we are ready to roll here.
Let's make it happen.
Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay. Okay, so we go 5, see 5, 5, 4, 3. Hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop. How's everybody doing out there? Of course, if I could hear you, you could tell me. But anyway,
You can type in the comments. And
yeah,
tell
well,
us.
you can do that, absolutely. Our guest this week, we're going to talk about dialects and a few other fun things too. Our guest is PJ Ochlan. PJ, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you, Dan?
We're
Hey,
doing
George.
great. So, if you got any questions for PJ about dialects and all this stuff that is really important to learn if you're a voice actor, put it in the chat room. And maybe as we talk, you'll have a question based on something we're talking about, and we will get to that in the next segment. So stay tuned. You ready, George?
I'm ready as ever.
It's time for VoiceOver Body Shop right now. VoiceOver Body Shop is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Hey, how's it going out there? I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver,
Body Shop.
or VOBS. Well, I keep forgetting that tomorrow night is Halloween, depending on what time you're watching this.
It
If you're
feels
watching
like
the replay,
when Halloween's on a Tuesday, it's like it's been done already.
right? I mean,
It's like all the partying happened. There was tons of people in the streets. Culver City, I was riding through there on Sunday at 5, and it was full of kids.
yeah,
So they already it's been done already.
yes. We've been told that we have one bag of candy less than what we should. So now we got to go buy
What's
another
that
bag.
mean?
It means that somebody said, "Oh yeah, we usually go through this many bags of candy on Halloween."
Really?
You know, how many do you have? Well, we got. Oh, you're going to need more than that.
Okay.
I mean, we've been doing it for we've been here for 8 years. It's Halloween
They
every
must have
year.
printed more kids, or either they're more, or they're greedier.
I know,
One or
and,
the other.
people just decorate their places like crazy. Like my neighbor with the graveyard.
Yeah, your
And-
neighbor head really goes off.
Yeah, all we do is take a lemon and write "boo" on it, and it's sort of like hanging there. And that's Halloween for us. Anyway, I hope you're all enjoying your Halloween or had a great Halloween, depending on when you're watching this.
Right.
Tonight we have a great guest because we want to talk about dialects. And the number one guy in town who can do that is award-winning actor and producer and coach PJ Ochlan. He's been working in the entertainment industry for nearly 40 years. PJ is best known behind the microphone as the widely acclaimed and record-setting audiobook narrator of more than 500 titles. And PJ is also one of the industry's leading dialect and performance coaches. He's founder of Dr. Dialect, which is www.drdialect.com, co-founder of the Diane Institute of Voice Artistry in Los Angeles, and teaches from coast to coast at conferences and universities. And PJ is the official dialect coach for Universal Studios and the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So he's one of the only people on the planet who actually teaches at Hogwarts. Let's welcome to VoiceOver Body Shop, PJ Ochlan. PJ, how you
Hey,
doing?
Dan. Hello again.
Hey, great to see you.
How do I
again.
get one of those boo lemons?
Oh, just come on over. I'll just
Okay,
write
great,
boo on
awesome.
it.
I want to make a note. I've got to stop by because that's
It just-
that's a treat I want to get my hands on.
Yeah, it's like, just write boo on it. It'll be fine. Someone will see it. Anyway, welcome to the show again. You know,
Thanks.
accents are a really tough thing, and we'll get into talking about that in a second. But as the introduction said, you wear a lot of hats, doing a lot of different things. How do you handle all that? I assume you don't do it all at exactly the same time.
There's some crossover, but no, generally speaking, it's sort of like divided into three things: the acting, and I'll lump the voice acting in with that, the producing and the coaching. And no, I just somehow make it work. I'm not nowadays. I'm doing a lot more of the producing and coaching. With the pandemic time and with the strike and everything else, the on-camera stuff is quieter than it's been in decades past. So that's not taking up as much time as it has. And then VO wise, I'm doing at least 90% of my work is in audiobooks, and you can kind of write your own schedule with audiobooks. The vast majority is self-recorded, self-engineered, self-directed in my home studio. So you can kind of make that work. And then the producing, it's not passive, obviously. You're still participating in every project you're producing, but it's not that direct one-to-one every minute of the project. It's you in the booth the way it is with narrating. So somehow it all works, and it's good. It keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. What sort of voiceover projects are you working on right now that you can tell us about?
I'm working on today. In fact, I was in the booth doing the follow-up to a really popular Japanese detective mystery series that I do, and this Roman, these adventure stories, fictional, but they incorporate a lot of Roman history into these stories of these Roman legionaries, and just a ton of things. Mostly the audiobooks, but across all different genres. My wife's series, which is my favorite thing that I do, hands down. And yes, obviously I'm biased, but they really are amazing. That's a YA fantasy series that are just a blast to record. So there's always something keeping me on my toes in the booth.
Yeah. So when you do something Roman, do you do it in a British accent the way every Roman movie I ever watched?
It's so funny you should say that. As a matter of fact, as we've often joked sometimes, especially as Americans, Brits don't do this. Brits don't take on American accents when they're playing, ancient Romans, because it's different from our being.
Right.
But we do that for whatever reason. It just sounds right, and the audience buys in. Accent choices don't always necessarily, they're not always informed by reality and history, but we go with maybe what the audience expects and what makes for hopefully the best listening experience. And for some reason, British RP for ancient Rome just works.
Yeah. It's Shakespearean, that's why.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. But it always strikes me as, but did they all speak with British accents in ancient Rome?
And of course, they were all speaking English too.
Of course, exactly. Because nobody can speak Latin.
There you go.
I mean,
what do you do when a book lands on your desk that is going to be? I don't know. How far have you gotten into a book where you realize I shouldn't have picked this book?
Yeah, really.
What do you do when that happens? It's got to happen once in a while.
Unless it's some crazy like you're absolutely wrong casting for a variety of reasons. That could be like background or even gender. There have been situations where I've said to a publisher, this is written in like third person limited perspective, but they might have just glanced at it, and you realize it's third person limited to the POV of like the female lead of the book. Like this should totally be her book. You know what I mean? So you get situations like that occasionally, and you'll go back and say, I don't know if you guys noticed this, and they'll say, oh, thanks for pointing it out, and recast and bring it to their attention. But when it comes to like accents or characters, unless I feel like I'm wildly miscast, it's a challenge. You take it on. And even if it's something you haven't done before, I guess I've always been known a little bit for my versatility. So that doesn't really happen too much. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, the casting directors and the producers responsible for the books, they have a clue, so they're looking at the book, and unless something has slipped through the cracks, they're picking you for a reason, and something that it falls within your range, or something you've done before, or maybe you have a little bit of a fan base in that particular genre. Who knows? But lots of different factors.
Yeah. If you've got a question for PJ Ochlan about dialects, which I'm sure everybody is fascinated with, put it in the chat room, because I know that Jeff Holman is sitting back there somewhere typing out every word that we say here, or at least he's taking your questions, and we'll get to those questions in a little bit. All you have to do is, whether you're on Facebook Live or whether you're on our website, in YouTube, or even on LinkedIn, we're everywhere live, which means the entire world is watching. Just put it in the chat room where you are, and Jeff will get that question to us in a little bit. So we We'd really like it if you ask some questions and get involved and interactive with our show. So trying different dialects isn't for everyone, but should everyone try?
Well, sure. I mean, are we talking about voice actors?
Yes, of course.
Then sure. Yeah. I mean, trying. I guess it depends. It comes down to, yes, there's some innate talent, but you can learn things, as I'm sure your audience is well aware of. There's coaching available in every aspect of this industry, as you both specialize in your areas. Dialect's no different, and there are techniques you can use to take on these skills, to acquire them over time. It helps to have an ear, obviously, to come to the table with some innate talent that's factory installed. But even if you don't, you can learn techniques that will help you improve. And then what you have to ask yourself, I believe, then is, what are the requirements of the job? Right. Like, take audiobooks. Audiobooks are a great example. The listener, I say this all the time, the listener is in on the conceit. They sign up for the idea that it's one narrator playing the entire cast.
Right.
And you want them to become immersed in that. But at no point do you have to convince the listener that you stepped out of the booth and some German dude stepped in to read that dialogue. There's still that built-in understanding that it's you. So a little bit of flavor goes a long way, right?
Absolutely.
There's that gray area that you can live within. Whereas if you've been cast as one role in animation or multiple roles in interactive, like in a video game, and you're hired to play the Russian guy, the German guy, and the Israeli, there is no conceit built in. You have to be 100% convincing in those roles individually, right? So that's the distinction. So we have to figure out what's the threshold you need to cross for the job requirements. And with audiobooks, I often teach, I developed a thing because an audiobook narrator can find themselves in a unique position where they've been cast in a job and it has some character and accent requirements, and they accept the gig. And then they realize, oh boy, the publisher or the casting director didn't tell me there's like 5 different accents in here that I haven't done before. Now, in that situation, it's not really practical to hire a dialect coach like me to do 5 one-hour sessions on these 5 different accents that you need to start recording 4 days from now. So what I developed was this program on how to be your own dialect coach. And that's really, really useful, I think, for any VO discipline, but more so when we talk about an audiobook situation like that, where you're playing these 5 different accents that you need to acquire. Again, that concept of a little bit of flavor goes a long way. If you can pick out 3 or 5 sound changes and the concept of the placement for those particular accents, that's more than enough to sell the audience on those characters who have those accents. So that's, just to give you an example of like what the different genres or different disciplines of VO might require. I think audiobooks are a good example where you don't have to be a master of the accents to do the job well. And one last thought on that, what I always tell people is who the character is always more important than what they sound like. And I think that applies across the board with VO, but especially in that example with audiobooks. Understand who they are, tap into their personality, their motivations, the acting 101 kind of stuff. And then the accent or the character voice and aspects you bring to it to distinguish them from other characters, that's gravy.
Mm-hmm. Once again, we're talking with PJ Ochlan, and we're talking about dialects. Your questions are welcome as well, so make sure you throw them in the chat room. This is a question I've always wondered, because especially in talking about dialects, what's the difference between dialects and accents? Explain.
Okay. So the first easy answer is that they're pretty interchangeable in today's parlance, because people talk about a dialect coach is not technically teaching dialects, we're teaching accents. So the term dialect coach has been used in the entertainment industry for a really long time, but we're doing accent coaching. The more technical answer is when we get into dialects, we're talking about linguistic differences. An accent is the sound someone has when they're speaking another language, let's say, the accent that comes with it, or even in their own native language. The accent is the sound. The dialect is the linguistic difference. So, for example, you've got classic Italian versus the Neapolitan dialect, right? So when you see those, they're also written differently. So sometimes you can have copy your script and we can say it's written in dialect. You might even see this like with the Scottish accent, for example. If it's written in the dialect, you'll see things like the WI apostrophe or the NO apostrophe representing the glottalized T. So you see things like that. That's another example of the definition of dialect. So linguistic differences or a language written into your actual script, written with the dialect, written in dialect. Hope that answers your question.
Well, no, that makes total sense. The thing I think a lot of people, we sort of talked about this a little bit before, but some people just have an ear for this. Like, I know I can imitate certain things, and it's mostly every different nationality that lives in my neighborhood. Russians, Latin Americans, everything. But of course, when you're walking down the street and they're talking in some other language on their phone, and you're like, it's kind of weird. Now, was that Russian? Was that Ukrainian? Was that, from Kazakhstan, or were they talking Chinese like my neighbors do? We hear yelling from across the street, but we can't understand a word they're saying. But they all, the dialects and those are all so different. I mean, I know I can do an accent, someone speaking English in another accent. Like, my old acupuncturist, Dr. Wu, who talk real quiet like this, or someone who's speaking with an Indian accent. Oh, yes, anybody can do that one. It's very easy to do that. Mixing a little bit of Yiddish in there, but it's
is that a remix or a mixer?
It might be. I'm always listening, and I'm always listening to see what is different about that. But then again, everything starts to get a little bit stereotyped. When you're working with somebody, how do you get them perhaps out of their preconceived notions of what it is they're supposed to be doing?
It's such a good question. The preconceived notions, since I have the great advantage of working primarily with actors, it's rare, just in my career, there have been a few situations where you work with a business professional who's looking for like accent reduction, things like that. But by and large, 99+% of the people I work with are actors. So their preconceived notions, I think, are largely an advantage. They're bringing something to the table where, okay, let me explain it this way. I break down accent work into two buckets, basically. I say there's the placement bucket and the sound change bucket, or phonetics. And I often demonstrate how you can't have one without the other. I'll say each bucket is worth 50%. So the only way the math works is with some combination of the two if you want to get to a passing grade. If this bucket's full, you're at 50, that ain't a passing grade. You need some combination of the two to get there. And that's sort of how I demonstrate placement. So an example I use all the time, I'm happy to share with you now, is let's say we're on set and we've learned a German accent together and they just added a line to the script. And you're freaking out because we didn't work on that specific line. And the line they added is, do you have it? Now, if we're only working on sound changes, and I look at this line, if the only thing we're doing is respelling the line in the accent, right? Only phonetic changes. I look at this line, there's not a whole lot that we can do there. The long U sound in do and you doesn't change a whole lot. The short I and it, Germans can handle that, doesn't change very much. The one word that's going to change phonetically would be the word have. And I could say, well, a German, generally speaking, and we often work in these generalizations, not stereotypes, but generalizations in terms of most Germans will do this when speaking English. That's what gives us something to latch onto and what ultimately makes it recognizable for the audience member, which is our goal. They know you're doing a German accent. So I'll say they generally will change a short A to a short E and a V to an F. So we take this HAV phonetically and turn it into HEF phonetically. So the new spelling of the line, if I haven't changed anything else, is do you hef it? With me so far?
Yeah.
But therein the problem lies, because I just said that out loud and it didn't make me sound remotely German.
Right.
Yeah, but then we start to imagine, I start to move the placement of my voice. Yeah, we get to the front of the mouth, the lips and the teeth. And I say, well, do you have it? Do you have it? And now I'm sounding German. So this works. This works for the character, and that's good. But let's go a step further. Say, well, this P-check guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I am a diplomat. I speak on the world stage. I know what a V is. Thank you very much. I've been using English my whole life. And I say, well, do you have it? Do you have it? Yeah? And I still sound German. So now as I go back to standard American, the thing I want you to notice is the placement shift.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, even though the example makes it seem like placement trumps phonetics, it doesn't, but they have equal importance. So bringing this back to what I was saying, that working with actors, placement is a really tricky thing to teach and learn. I help people with that, obviously, but it's something that often gets jumped over or skipped because dialect coaches, especially in the private world, as opposed to working on set with someone and you're there all day or what have you, or working for the duration of a project, if you're doing a 1-hour session with a dialect coach, placement is a hard thing to get into. So I spent a good amount of my career realizing that's not acceptable and trying to make it more digestible, understandable, comprehensible, and so on. And I think I've succeeded in that.
What do you mean by placement, though?
I'll get there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The cool thing is actors are coming with this automatic understanding, if you will, most of the time. Like just through mimicry alone, you're leapfrogging a lot of the more esoteric aspects of acquiring placement. So what I mean by placement, Dan, to answer your question, is it's not about where we create sound, it's more where we send it. So when I was doing that example with the German, I talked about the lips and the teeth. Mm-hmm. As far forward as we can possibly imagine, the same sort of placement we use for British RP. Those are the two, you could say, most forward accents. Standard American, this is a good tip for everybody. If you want to acquire different placement, it's essential to kind of know what your baseline placement is. So if you want to just talk, I recommend you do this. Just talk at a normal level, say anything and just keep talking. It doesn't matter. Don't pay attention to the words you're using. Rather, pay attention to what it feels like in your mouth while you're doing it. So if you're a standard American speaker, more often than not, you're going to feel this ring of vibration in the middle of your mouth. Tongue, jaw, cheek muscles really engaged, vibration up to the roof of your mouth and like the highest part of the cavern in there, right in the middle, that ring right here. I feel that when I'm just talking normally, standard American, and I bet you will too, all of you listening in. And that's really good. Once you've acquired that and you understand it, then you can start to play around with your placement and move it. And you go all the way down, like the deepest guttural, most throaty thing is where we would place Russian. And then all the way forward, the other extreme end of the spectrum would be British RP and German. So that's the concept of placement. And you need that. So in that example that I did, it's not that the placement's more important, but you need both. And you can really get away. There's a lot more room for error when you have a good understanding of placement, because as I demonstrated, I could ignore the dialect coach's advice about those sound changes and still manage to sound German by holding that placement, right? So there you go. Hopefully that answers it.
All right. Once again, we're talking with PJ Ochlan. We're talking about dialects, which is a real important part of voiceover, especially if you're doing audiobooks or if you're doing audio drama, which is now becoming really important since, podcasting has become the democratization of broadcasting. Everybody can do it. So let's bring back, the theater of the mind and doing audio. Have you worked with anybody doing audio drama?
Yeah, just did this really, really cool project. I've done quite a few, but just did a really great one with the folks from LA Theater Works and also Allison Larkin. You might know Allison, who does some beautiful work. And we put together this very, very cool piece, yet to be released, but we did. It was this amazing thing, Civil War in their own words, and it combined elements of Uncle Tom's Cabin and the Lincoln Douglas debates. And I played Stephen Douglas and a few characters from Uncle Tom's Cabin and others as well, John Brown. It was really, really cool. But in those circumstances, that's where it's different from what we talked about with audiobooks, where the listener is not in on some conceit that it's one narrator doing the whole thing. Now you're back to the idea of like animation or a stage production or a film production. You're cast in those roles. So now the bar is higher. Now you need to be fully convincing in those accents or in those, character voice portrayals. Right.
Right. Once again, we're talking with PJ Ochlan. And if you're just joining us, well, you've missed a whole lot already. But you still get the chance to ask your questions in the chat room where Jeff Holdman is standing by and taking those down. If this is something fascinating to you, and as a voice actor, it really should be, feel free to ask your questions. How often do you get a chance to talk to somebody like PJ and ask the right questions? Now, we talked a little bit about technique. I mean, I have my techniques for doing these sorts of things. A lot of it is mimicking more than anything else. And sometimes it's talking gibberish in another language. Like if I want to talk Russian,
I love gibberish.
Well, you're talking in French. You're talking like that.
I found the funniest video that was I think it was Italian video, like a song from the 70s. Yeah, where they're imitating American accent, but it's all gibberish.
It's I encourage everybody to look it up, and it's such a catchy song. This goes back to like the 60s. And
60s,
amazing.
The video too is so good. Priceless.
It's so good. Yeah.
I remember seeing an interview with Ricardo Montalban once. I think it was on the Tonight Show, and he's like, "Well, I grew up in Mexico, and we thought when we heard American TV, it sounded like a dog barking. That doesn't sound like that to me." But
if you ever hear that song that George was just talking about, it's great because like the only thing in there that's actually English is at the end of certain lines they say "all right." So it's like this long string of gibberish and it ends in "all right." It's brilliant. It's so brilliant.
All righty. Once again, we're talking with PJ Ochlan. How do you think AI is going to affect all of this stuff when it comes to the audio world? Can a computer do a dialect, or what have you seen? What are you seeing coming, and how do you think it's going to affect the industry?
Wow, we go from fluffy questions about dialect work into like the big giant herd of elephants in the room. Okay. Huge topic. Huge. Dropping a bomb, Dan. Okay. Can it do it? Amazingly right now, not yet. But I think like anything else in VO, we have to be completely prepared for the fact that it will. There's just no getting around that. And I think with the advent of any technology, especially on a show with a guy named George the Tech, we have to appreciate that you're not going to stop the technology. It is coming. So when we get into like these deeper AI conversations, my sort of baseline is always we've got to focus on, in terms of job security, we've got to focus on what we can do that by definition AI can't do. And that's really the focus on the humanity, the soul of the performance, what makes art truly art. That, as I say, is the baseline for me. The next layer to that, while we can't stop the technology, so I'm not much of a fan of just raging against it because I just don't think that'll do any good. But here's the deeper side in where my thoughts have been going lately. I think that the collective power centers, corporations, major producers, this type of thing, the industry at large, decision makers, I think there's a responsibility there to not fully embrace it and understand that key difference. Maintaining artistic integrity is such a big deal. And there have been situations throughout history where these power centers will start doing something differently, and the public is sort of forced to accept it. And I was in a conversation with someone recently about this, making this point, and she hadn't thought of it in this way before, but then she brought up a brilliant example, which I'll use with you today. And she said, "Oh, you mean like architecture?" And I said, "Yeah, exactly." In other words, you have this period in history where so much effort was put into architecture because in this belief that we want to be surrounded by beauty. And in time, that beauty becomes impractical and there's a shift. And we start accepting something less than beauty. And this is what I mean, where it gets certainly more philosophical, but I think it's a really important point. If, for example, the industry accepts AI in its entirety, in other words, that's the only thing out there that's available unless you're seeking out the underground independent sort of stuff. Your plumber, your mortgage broker, your real estate agent, they don't suddenly go out and start producing their own movies because they're unhappy with what's being shown to them in the theaters. They will start to consume what is delivered. That's the part where it's not as clear cut as the free market, the simple, well, it'll work itself out. If you're force fed something and it's something you still want to be part of your life, i.e. entertainment, and this is all you're given, this is the only option you're given. If a city is built up out of prefab sheet metal structures, that's all you're given. Unless you go out there and build your own cathedral, unless you go out there and produce your own film, you get what you get. So this is where I look for some balance and where I'll certainly advocate for some balance. The AI is coming. It's already here. We're already seeing the impact on jobs. Yes, that's scary. I understand all that. The best way we can resist it is to focus on our art. Remember what the A stands for. And as creators, don't be that. Understand that by definition, we are not what the A stands for. So focus on the opposite of that humanity, that soul. And at the same time, advocate for the responsibility of the power centers to not embrace AI as a whole, because it's an economic replacement. Because just like with architecture, we will find ourselves at some point in the future surrounded not by beauty and not by artistic creation, but by what came easiest. And that would be sad.
All righty. Once again, we're talking with PJ Ochlan. We're talking about dialects and accents and any question you have on that, like how do you do that? Throw it in the chat room right now. We'll get to it in just a minute. But right now we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with PJ Ochlan right here on Voice Over Body Shop, so don't go away.
This is Bill Ratner, and you're enjoying Voice Over Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
Oh, hi. You know, if you live in a house and your voiceover studio is in that house, you don't want to disturb everybody else who's living in there. So what you need are good headphones that are made specifically for voiceover. And that's why we have Harlan Hogan's signature series Voice Optimized Headphones 2.0. What's so great about these? Well, one, they have a very flat response, so you only hear exactly what it is you sound like. Second, incredibly comfortable. Leather pads on the outside filled with memory foam, a really comfortable headband that really works with your head. The most important thing, you can wear them for long periods of time. That's really important. Where do you get them? Only at voiceoveressentials.com. That's voiceoveressentials.com. Just go there, look at the headphones, and get them now. Tell them we sent you. Thanks, Harlan.
Well, it's my chance to talk about Source Elements. And actually, I think I've got something different to talk about for a change, right? They finally announced a new version of Source Nexus. And why that's interesting to a voice actor, it just gives sessions a new way to run and a new way that you can be brought into a session. But not only that, if you ever wanted to host your own show, if you ever want to do podcasts, things like this, there are features built into Nexus now that make running your own show or podcast better than ever as well, because it not only gives great quality audio connections between you and your guests, but it also locally captures the audio for the show and uploads the files to you afterwards. So you've got the raw audio in the best possible quality. And that all works through what's called the Source Nexus Gateway. So it's a very interesting new take on Source Connect. There is going to be a roadmap going where Source Nexus and the gateway and the portal and all these different features all start to have a giant mind meld and create a very cohesive system. But for now, Source Connect 3.9 is still the one that voice actors need to have access to, learn how to use, and just be familiar. So head over to source-elements.com and get Source Connect going on your system today, so you are ready for the big gigs when they come along, because they are the ones that tend to use Source Connect standard in your home studio. Thanks for listening. We got a lot more to talk about with PJ Ochlan just coming up right after this.
Well, hey there, it's David H. Lawrence with VO Heroes, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a very simple tool, drag and drop tool, that would guarantee that the audio you need to upload to ACX or any other audiobook platform is perfectly set up in terms of the text standards, the root mean square normalization, the peak normalization, the noise floor? Guess what? There is. And I want you to have it absolutely free. It's called Audio Cupcake, and you can find it at audiocupcake.com. I helped create this software. It was built to my specs and my standards for when I do audiobooks, and I know it's going to work for you. Now, it's only available for Macintosh because you Windows users, you have the ability to use other tools that work for you. But in this case, you edit your final raw WAV file for a chapter, you drop it onto Audio Cupcake, and out comes the 192K mono MP3 file you can upload immediately. That's audiocupcake.com. Audiocupcake.com. I hope you love it.
You're still watching VOBS?
Oh, your mic's cut right now, Dan.
Take two.
There we go. And so's PJ. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, we got it. Still, our director has a bad back, so
You're doing
I'm
a
directing
really
today.
good job, my friend, keeping it all going.
Yeah, it's concentrate on this, concentrate on that.
A lot to do, yeah.
As long as George and I don't fight over the switcher, it'll be fine. We're talking with PJ Ochlan. We're talking about dialects, which is what he teaches over at it is www.drdialect.com. And you can go over there and see all the stuff that he does. And if you want to take some coaching on how to do that, he's the guy to talk to. Now, George, you had a question in the last half hour about the quality of audiobook publishing. What was that?
It seems that there's the quality of audio that's released in audiobook publishing has stagnated and not really changed or improved well since I've known about the industry, really, to be honest, maybe 15 years. Do you see a roadmap to where that's going to change? I'm a little concerned because AI voices are so clinically perfect and absolutely that I'm a little bit afraid that people will get so used to hearing these like absolutely sterile, clear, perfectly recorded audio samples of AI voice that the real recordings will become kind of outmoded. Do you see any end of evolution happening in that area?
I do see evolution. However, one aspect you said that I don't know that I'm entirely on board with has to do with that perfection of AI. I don't see as a positive.
No, I don't mean it as a positive either. I'm just afraid that people will get used to this overly sterile thing, and then I've actually heard somebody say that I listen to a lot. He was a journalist essentially, who says that I like AI books on certain topics because I can listen to them at 2x and hear everything they are saying. Right. And that's a totally different. That's a different thing from performing. That's just pumping data into someone's brain as quickly as possible, and that's what some people are looking for. But I mean, not to distract with the AI comment, but I just feel like there's some room.
Are we talking
to go
production
with
value?
Just those sound like the fidelity of the audiobook production itself, like an HD version or a high res version.
Sure. I mean, one thing I think you've seen, one of the advents in the audiobook industry that changed things a lot, and of course this is across the board with VO, not just audiobooks, but especially with audiobooks, is the prevalence of the home studio narrator and the prevalence of ACX, the Audiobook Creation Exchange, which is a subsidiary of Amazon. So you've got the Amazon ACX Audible triumvirate, if you will. And that brought about the more, I hate to use the word amateur because a lot of pros, including me, we produce on ACX because often that's the platform we're using to release books we're doing for independent authors and so on. So it's not across the board amateur. But when I started teaching, like when I co-founded the Dion Institute with Deb Dion, which was right after Bob Dion had passed, and I do all of our classes, we do like the audiobook introductory intensive, for example. And when I first started teaching that intro class, I would bring up, we were doing it in person at the Dion Studios. Now almost everything's virtual, but I would bring up on the screen ACX and we'd see, and there were so few producers and the producers on ACX are the narrators. But you have a producer account because on ACX, you're responsible for delivering retail-ready audio, as opposed to you're just narrating for a publisher or another production company. You are the producer on ACX. And that number was tiny. And now it's gigantic. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are signed up with ACX producer accounts. And with that in mind, obviously a huge percentage of those are not professionals. And in terms of passing the audio quality standards to get an independent book released through the ACX platform, you just have to hit mastering marks and it's going to get released. That's it. So there's no additional vetting. That floods the market with a lot of things that are subpar in terms of production value. And also, again, the advent of home studios, you've got a lot of situations where most of these home studios, it's not like everyone's going in and recording on a Neumann U87 in a beautiful, booth set up in a professional environment. So that obviously is quite different. But there's also the practicality of the audiobook market. There's only so much a publisher can feasibly invest in the production of an audiobook. And I mean, even the big five, when they're doing several thousand books a year each, many of those books they're producing, but they know they're not going to be moneymakers, even remotely. So there is a consideration for budget that they want to get them in under a certain bar to make it even viable to produce. And many they choose not to produce in audio because they don't think it'll even reach that bar, even on a bare bones type of budget. So those practicalities have to be brought in as well. In terms of evolution, I think we're seeing a lot more in terms of multicast production, full soundscape, fully produced audio dramas. The ones that merit that and the publisher, the production company believe this is going to be a worthwhile endeavor, you see more of that now. And the quality of those are really, really fantastic. So I guess it's ultimately
audio drama is now starting to be, audio dramas are starting to be released under the umbrella of the audiobook publishing world.
All of the publishers now have their audio originals. Audible was, I think, the first one to say Audible originals, but now all the publishers have their originals arm, and they're doing things that aren't necessarily traditional books. And they're doing a lot of things that are being written specifically for audio. This is an audio play, if you will, perhaps from traditional authors, but totally brought into existence for the sole purpose of audio production and not to be released in a text form. So you're seeing more and more of this, even from the traditional publishers. I just did one of those with Simon & Schuster. PRH, Penguin Random House, is doing a bunch of those. So it's happening more and more. Obviously, Audible's been in that game for a while. And that's bridging the gap between the podcasting, the fictional podcasting world, and the traditional audiobook world. And I guess it ultimately comes down to the difference between what we might think of as a very small film festival indie entry and a summer blockbuster. That's going to exist in every craft. It exists in movies, and I think that's going to exist with the audiobook world as well in all the different iterations.
That's good to know. I want to check out some of those finished products that you've worked on, and maybe
they're impressive.
Post some links to some of those in the end of the show. We can check them out because I'd like to listen to them just out of fascination. As being more of a tech than a book reader myself, that's most of my library, right? But I'm definitely very interested in hearing how those productions sound and how they're produced and stuff. And because my job as a technologist like Dan's is to really raise the quality of everybody's home studio.
Right.
And if they're getting confused all the time with, well, all I have to do is hit these marks on the RMS and the noise floor, and I'm good, right?
Exactly.
I'm always pushing people to move beyond those basics.
As you should. And I think you're providing a huge service by doing that, because that was exactly my point. When the threshold is simply, it hits the mastering specs, that doesn't mean the quality of the production is high,
Right. Yeah. It all depends on what it sounds like.
There you go.
And does it sound what it's supposed to sound like? We got a question here from Fiber Jazz. He says, for PJ, if I wanted to work, say, on a French accent, would you want me to already know French? I mean, speaking English with a French accent?
No, not necessary at all. Sometimes it can come in handy because if you speak the other language, the source language of the accent we're working on, that can help in terms of, like, for French, if you already speak the language, je l'ai étudié à l'université depuis 2 années seulement. I already have an understanding of where that placement is. So I'm comfortable there. Or I might understand the French R, rouge, rouge. And I understand where that comes from. That can help, but not only is it not necessary, because we don't need any of the French words for doing the accent on English. That's number one. And number two, I've actually had situations where I work with someone who does speak the language. They're coming to me to learn how to apply the language to English because they don't have experience keeping the accent from the language on English. And sometimes it's really hard for them because they can't separate the accent from the language. So it's not always a benefit even.
That's a good point. If you grew up learning and speaking French, then you learned English from an American teacher or whatever, you're going to speak English with an American accent. You're not going to speak it with a French accent. At least
more than likely, depending on the age you learned it at.
True, the age, yeah.
Yeah, the age is everything. Weird glitch of the brain or one of the aspects. This, by the way, fun fact for anybody, like when you're deciding should this character have an accent or not, it's right around puberty. If you move to the new location and you acquire that language prior to puberty, there's a hard wiring in the brain that happens right around 12, 13-ish. And we've probably all had that experience where you might meet a couple of siblings and the older sibling has an accent. They sound like they just moved here yesterday, really heavy accent. And their younger sibling sounds like they were born and raised down the street. And you can do a little bit of like accent sleuthing there and say, I'm thinking when your family moved here, you were like 15 and you were about 7. Like, how did you know that? And it's like, it's that giveaway because there's that cutoff point. And we see that all the time. That person who moved here at 15, they could be in America for 25 years and sound like they did the day they stepped off the plane.
Ah, that makes so much sense because I listen to my girlfriend's got 5 siblings, all not in the U.S. She's lived here 15 years, but she's got one of the strongest accents out of all of her siblings. And, I'm thinking and a lot of them none of them live in the U.S.
Right.
They're all overseas. So that is really fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is amazing how it works. It's really like flipping a switch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got the next question, George, from Ron M.
Ron M. PJ, where do we find your training? What is your training site again?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for any private coaching, drdialect.com. You can reach out to me. My information's on there. I'm very easy to get a hold of. Busy, but I'll certainly get back to you. So my email's on there, and there's contact form as well if you prefer that, but that's drdialect.com, drdialect.com.
Since you mentioned the busy part, I mean, all of us find ways to make time for different aspects. How do you determine how much of your time you dedicate to coaching versus working on book projects?
It's a great question, and I just don't know that I have a decent answer. It just always works out. I mean, you start to book out, sometimes you book out farther and sometimes you have more immediate availability. It depends. I've been taking on less recording work, I guess just in the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is just, I'm happy with the current sort of balance. And some of it is just the demand for the producing time and the coaching time. I'll parlay this into a second answer to the other question, which is the other site is Deyan Institute, Deyan spelled Deyan, institute.com. And we have a wildly popular, the masterclass series that we do has nothing to do with dialects. This is where the performance coaching side of things comes in. And every week, it's an every other week thing. We do a season of 6 guests. And I'm your lead coach and host. And I have with me a special guest who's a casting director or publisher, producer from the industry, decision makers, who all bring, different aspects. Some of them work as directors, some of them work only in casting, some of them work only in producing, some of them work as engineers, but they're all decision makers on casting as well. And the insights they bring, I let them take the lead on directing pieces. Everybody reads a piece. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's so meaningful. And that's what really excites me. It really is incredibly meaningful. Everybody who does it, the letters I get, you guys wouldn't believe. It's made such an impact, and it's so rewarding. It's so gratifying that things like that start to make up a big part of my schedule, because we do 2 seasons per year now, and each one is 18 classes because I'm doing 3 nights with each guest just to fulfill the demand. And that's as much as we can go, because I can't ask them to do a fourth night. It's already crazy. And they sell out in like 2 hours. No joke. It's like 360 slots or something, but they're so good. And it means so much to me that it's having such a positive impact that, that changes things. Like, I want to put effort into that because it's making a difference. And if that takes away a little bit of time from my narrating, I'm okay with that at this point in my career. So somehow I just juggle it and it works, Yeah. And then if anybody wants, there's the character voice toolbox, which is my 7 Ps. The tools that I use, again, the who's more important than the what, but nonetheless, I've had series where each book has upwards of 150, 200 characters, and I'm trying to keep them all unique from each other. And in the series, you're exceeding 1,000 characters in 5 or 7 books. And these are the tools I use to try and make sure that the 9 different bartenders and the 8 different posses and the 8 different bandit gangs in the Western all kind of sound unique. And that is the first half. The second half is the how to be your own dialect coach thing. I do that live once a year, but it's available as a video. So that's on the website, on the Dr. Dialect website too. So I think that's really useful. It's like 3.5 hours of instruction. So I highly recommend that if anybody is looking to acquire those skills and has use for them in their VO career.
All righty. We got time for a question, maybe two. Larry Oblander II asks, I missed a lot already, but do you recommend for learning or practicing dialects on your own?
What do I recommend for practicing on your own? Is that the question?
Yes.
The thing I just mentioned, I mean, totally self-promotion, but the how to be your own dialect coach, I think is huge, because it's so hard to know what to look for. If you don't have experience or have worked with a dialect coach, you need to first figure out, what am I listening for? What am I looking for? So I break down the key aspects of the phonetics, the concept of placement, how to acquire placement, where to look for it, how to execute, that's where I think it comes in really handy. Understanding even basics, like not just the phonetics, but also how significant understanding of a schwa is. If you guys remember from school, the upside down backwards E symbol, it's all over the place in English. And sometimes understanding whether your speaker, your accented speaker, knows what that is and understands it is going to affect their accent on the English. So I go through all that kind of stuff. When you have that kind of a handle, then hopefully it equips you to go out, listen to resources through places like YouTube, through places like Paul Meyer's Dialects Archive, through places like George Mason University, the accents.gmu. Is that the one? Yeah, close to that. I might be misstating it, but that's the George Mason University one. These are wonderful resources, but you got to know what to do with them. Just having a database of the accents, mimicry will get you pretty far, but not typically far enough if you don't know what you're listening for. So that's where, like, really capitalizing on the most significant sound changes that separate that accent from another, I think that's a big deal.
All right. George, you had one last question there?
Yeah. What do you feel like is like the strongest conference? There's so many conferences now. But for people that are really focused on audiobook narrating, what do you think is the best resource for them on the conference level?
On the conference level, if it's about audiobook narrating specifically, APAC, the Audio Publishers Association Conference, hands down. That's the one, because it's not just about the learning that comes from the panels and so on, but it's also, when you do a conference, let's be honest, part of your reason for attending and participating is you're networking and you're looking to meet the people who are in a position to hire you. You want to get jobs. You don't just want to learn about the craft. You want to get gigs. APAC, I think, delivers more than any other in that regard, because it is entirely audiobook focused and because it gets the most participation from the publishers and the production companies who can cast you. So if that's your goal, that's an easy answer.
All righty. Well, PJ, thanks so much for being with us. This was a very informative hour. And once again, where can people find you? What's your website? It's
for coaching purposes, drdialect.com, or my name, pjochlan.com, is my personal site. But I think I'm pretty easy to find on all the social. It's just at pjochlan. Reach out. I really am always happy to hear from people. And if I can help, I promise I'm glad to.
All righty. Thanks for being with us. This has been great.
Thank you, guys. It's great to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll run into each other probably in Gelson's or something. All right, we'll be right back to wrap things up and re-rack it for Tech Talk right after this, so do not go away.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Alazraqui, the voice of
Rocco, and you're watching VoiceOver Body Shop.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
All right, it's time for my little talk about voiceactor.com. That's voiceactor.com. What is voiceactor.com? Well, voiceactor.com is a website where you can create your own voice actor website. And, it's important that you have a website. At World Voices, when we're trying to determine whether you are a professional or not, to qualify to be a professional, you got to have a website. If you're a professional voice actor, you got to have a website. It is your business card with the stuff that makes you what you are, which is your name, your demos, which are really important, and how to get a hold of you. And sometimes trying to put a website together is very, very hard if you really don't know how to code and do all this other stuff. VoiceActor.com has made it incredibly simple for you. All you do is you go in there, you sign up, create an account, and setup is free. Yes, it's absolutely free to set up your initial website with a template. Templates make it super easy. There are different layouts and different color schemes. You can change the colors. You can change the background pictures. You can do anything you want, and it's all very simple, menu-driven, not code-driven. So go over to voiceactor.com and get your voice actor website up in no time. I mean, really quick. Not only that, you can use it for other types of websites as well. And then for $20 a month, you get your own URL, and it'll be on a server, and that will be your voice actor website. Go over to voiceactor.com right now and get your website up and running ASAP.
We are the World Voices Organization,
also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
and to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
a supportive and creative community,
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
our exclusive demo player for your personal website,
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library,
our annual WOVOCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network,
webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
We speak
for those
who speak for a living.
This is Ariana Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
All righty, we're back here at VoiceOver Body Shop. We're going to re-rack it for Tech Talk here in a second, and we're glad that you joined us tonight. And our thanks again to PJ Ochlan, teaching us about doing dialects. Go on over to his website and check him out, and maybe if you want to learn how to do it better, he's the guy to talk to. All righty, next week on this very show, if you happen to be in this same place next week, you come on to Facebook or our website or LinkedIn or wherever our podcast that's on Podbean, you will hear and watch Tech Talk number 113, which we are about to record. If you happen to be watching live, don't go anywhere because we got another hour of great stuff that you do not want to miss. And in 2 weeks, we've got a great coach who teaches promo, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of weeks. So make sure you join us for that one. You've got discounts for your people that go over to GeorgeD.Tech.
It's amazing how many of my clients know. I know they know about this show. I know they've seen the show, but they don't use the coupon code. What are they thinking? Go to GeorgeD.Tech/VOBS for our coupon code for discounts on videos. We've got a huge library, always growing, of recorded content now, webinars and modules, things that are longer, shorter, all different topics that are going to help you with your home studio if you want to go check that out. But get that passcode. Get that coupon code, guys.
There it is.
Easy. VOBS Fan 10.
All righty. And now we need to talk about our donors of the week. You can become a donor. Make sure that this show continues on technically perfect when the director's here. And
hey, you did a darn good job. You really did. That's not easy to juggle all those things.
It's going back and forth. It reminds me of my radio days with video. Anyway,
well, in the radio days, you had a console with all these buttons on it. You're just doing all this with a mouse. Click.
All righty.
Click.
Well, anyway, you can become a donor to the show. And here are some of the people that have done it, like Greg Cooper,
Grace Newton,
Christopher Epperson,
Robert Leadham,
Stephen Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Thomas Pinto,
Greg Thomas,
A Doctor Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
Feel Better Martha, 949 Designs,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Rob Ryder,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall,
Maria Mackis,
and Sandra Manwiller. Also, join our mailing list. All you have to do is go to our website, VOBS.tv, and down at the bottom it says subscribe to our newsletter. So you know who's going to be on the show this week. Anyway, also we need to thank our sponsors, Harlan Hogan's VoiceOver Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com, and WorldVoices.org, the industry association of freelance voice talent. Alrighty, now I got to find the other thing that I got to put up here, which is our email address, which is theguys@VOBS.tv. You can email us a question at any time during the week, and if you email us, guess what? You get to be first in line. So it's not a matter of, all you have to do is email us, say, hey, I got a tech question for you, and then we'll answer it and not have to wait. Exactly.
Or free.
That's right. It's all free. We're giving you all this free information. For crying out loud. Anyway, I got to hide that one. There we go. All right. So coming up next is Tech Talk. If you got a question for us, throw it in the chat room right now. If you're watching live, you get to interact with us. If you're watching this in replay, oh well. But you're still going to get lots of great information. So anyway, look, this is not an easy business. Voiceover requires training and knowing how to run a business and all that other stuff. But we've discovered that if you're recording right, if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
Or VOBS. Stay tuned for Tech Talk. Stop that.
All right.
Sometimes I just have to. The temptation to ask that last question, and that'll throw us over a little bit. But what are you going to do?
No, you did. Like I said, all that years of radio broadcast training is definitely coming to handy.
Well,
and then 12 years of doing the show.
Well,
don't forget that part.
There is that. We used to do it without a director, and it was, So anyway, the one thing that you learn in broadcasting is back timing. It's like you have 3 minutes and 20 seconds. This record is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Cue it up, and then watching the clock and hitting it right at the top of the hour when the network news comes in. And that was
it's all on a computer. It's auto sequenced and automated, and all you do is record your voice into a recorder, and then it plays it when it wants to.
That's right.
Very different now.
I learned how to count in base 60. So it's anyway. Okay, we're about to do Tech Talk here right now, and glad you're with us. Now's an opportunity. If you ever want to ask George or I a question about your home voiceover studio equipment or technique or anything, now would be a great time to throw it in the chat room because Jeff Holman is right there. Okay, let's
see him rehearsing too.
He's all set.
He's
Okay.
rehearsing, yeah.
So let's get in there and let's start VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk. Okay. Great time for the phone to ring.
Oh, Jeff.
Anyway,
it's big moment.
If you have a question for George or I on Home Voiceover Studios, put it in the chat room. And Jeff Holman, who's sitting there right now, still talking Tech Talk, is going to write it down and give it to us in the next half hour. We will get to your question. Great opportunity for you right now. Anyway, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk, so don't go away. It's time for that right now. VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com. Become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Hi there. Guess what? I'm Dan Leonard.
Hey, and I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
Or VOBS.
BS.
Tech Talk.
What are you doing?
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk. That's Jeff Holman, by the way, who's sitting in our chat room and getting all of your questions to us just to make sure that it's all complete.
Dan, I like the big head shot. Let's switch to the big heads.
You mean this one?
Yeah. Let's go big head tonight.
Okay,
because we have big heads.
We'll try this for a little
about tech.
That's right.
The big head's about tech.
now it's too distracting.
Is it too much?
It's just
too much.
It's
just too much.
Just too much. We'll just go back to that view. Okay, cool. Anyway, what is it that George and I do? We do home voiceover studio tech. You want to talk about a niche. Yeah, there's a bunch of other people out there saying, yeah, I do this, and yeah, I can help you with it. I can generally count on less than 2 hands the people that actually know what they're talking about. I won't mention any names, and I certainly won't mention the names of the people who we think have no idea what on earth they're talking about. Just remember that most people are experts in one studio, their own, and what works for them may not necessarily work for you in the environment in which you are working. And what George and I do is we help you understand all of the important things that have to go on in your home studio, and we will physically, if we happen to be close by. I mean, we do house calls here in LA. George, you go all over the place. You know, when you're traveling, you offer the opportunity for people to have you come over and work on their studios.
Yeah, actually, next week, or actually, as you're watching this in replay, I'm heading to Boise, Idaho.
Of all places.
So if you happen to be Boise, Idaho, and you'd really like me to come by, you know where to find me.
Oh, Boise. All right. And so if you want to work with one of us, because clearly, if you've been watching the show, you know what we're talking. We know that we're talking about. You can work with either one of us. Like, for instance, if you want to work with George, where do you go? You go over to?
There it is, georgethe.tech.
Wait, it's that one. I'm
sorry. Go to /VOBS because that's where you get our special deals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but nothing wrong with that. But yeah, georgethe.tech is the site, and we are growing in terms of our content and our service offerings and our team. There are a growing number of team members. We have a lot of different
getting
people.
Bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and we've got the 911 tech support service, which I'll tell you, fortunately for the last month, it's been pretty quiet. There's really been very, very few emergency tech calls coming in, which it's a good thing. We don't want to see emergencies, but if you do, you can call us 424-226-8528 and press option 9. And you will actually reach live dispatchers who will get you to one of our emergency on-call tech team. So pretty amazing stuff over at georgethe.tech. Dan, what you doing over there at homevoiceoverstudio.com?
Well, I tell people the reality of a home voiceover studio. It's not like it's something with lots of dials and buttons and a mixer and nice furniture and guitars hanging on the wall.
And it also isn't a gamer's headset.
No, it is not. And although I've seen it, there are some good headsets, but you can't afford them. It's important to get your setup done right. I will teach you about acoustics and proper microphone technique and why I always sound fabulous even if I have a cold. And you can sound that way too if you use your microphone right. And setting levels. No one seems to understand that stuff. If you want to learn how to do it right, if you're here in the Los Angeles area, I do house calls, and I just love going into people's homes and ripping out all the wires and making things a lot simpler for them. And they're like, geez, it sounds so much better. How'd you do that? I got rid of all the stuff that you had plugged in and stuff. It's not about the technology. It really is all physical. The technology is kind of secondary. You don't want crappy technology, but you certainly do want to have stuff that is going to work properly, and we know exactly what will work properly in your particular environment without all of those equations that acousticians use. It's like, sounds good to me, And generally, if you send in a sample to me at my specimen collection cup, it's like, I want some silence. I want you to read some copy, and I want you to have more open mic silence. And I will listen. And within 5 seconds at the least, I will know what's going on in your studio. I can see the background noise. I can hear what the reverberation is. You do this a couple thousand times, you actually get to know what you're doing. So go on over to homevoiceoverstudio.com and you'll get your home studio put together right. Look, you're looking at the two top guys in the business here. That's why we do this. We give you lots of free information, but we really would like, if you really need some help specifically with your home studio, you can't do better than either of us. Well, I know you'll do great with George. What happens with me is you'll have a great time because I end up talking about the voiceover business with people.
You probably get a lot more than you bargained for with Dan.
Yeah, most likely. Most likely. As a voice actor, there's an awful lot I know about the industry and
ins and outs.
I have a great time talking with people. Anyway, it's time for George's tech update. We got lots of stuff. What do you got for us this week?
Well, as timing should have it, this never happens on the show, but Apple decided it was time to have their scary fast release, which normally they do their big press releases launching a brand new Mac in the fall. That's nothing new. This time they squeaked it in. They decided not to do it on Halloween, but do it the night before, call it Scary Fast, and launch a few big announcements, maybe, just faster computers. The computers are exactly the same in terms of performance. Let's take a look at what you're going to see. This is from The Verge, by the way. The Verge does great. They do great reporting on their live events.
There's an M3 chip now?
It's the M3 chip. That's right. So you're not going to see it in the MacBook Air yet, but strangely, you will see it in the iMac. Yes, they released a new iMac New meaning exactly the same as the other iMac that was already out, just with a faster chip. So if you've been thinking about buying an iMac, now is probably the time to get the iMac. Now, who's an iMac for? It's not my first choice for a home studio. I'm always going to go these days to a Mac Mini for a home studio. I just like that you can get any size monitor you want. You're not stuck with a specific size. But if you like an extremely minimalistic looking setup, well, look at those pictures of the iMac. You can't get more minimal than that. That is an extremely clean looking little computer. And I've set up a few in some home studios and they work fine. They don't make any noise and they're plenty fast. I mean, listen, guys, anything with the M1 or higher chip is a light year ahead of anything made before it from Apple. It really is true. So it doesn't matter what you get. Just they're faster now than they were. M3, confusingly, is double the speed of an M1. If you're trying to compare apples to apples, see what I did there.
In Apple.
Yeah, exactly. So it is definitely faster. Will you notice it? I guess if you already have an M1 and you use it all the time, you might notice it. If you're coming from an older machine, they're all faster. So you're not gonna notice crazy how much crazier fast it is. And then the MacBook Pro is released as well with the newest M3 chips going up to the M3 Max. You'll notice that you can, for the mega power users who are ready to spend $7,100 on a new MacBook Pro.
Holy crap.
You can get 128 gigabytes of memory or RAM in your MacBook Pro and 8 terabytes of storage. So that is one monster computer and a portable computer. And it supports up to 4 external screens.
And it's 16 core or up to 40 core? I mean, remember it was like 2 cores was really cool.
It's insane. It's clearly for video professionals and photography professionals. It does have a memory card slot in it again. So yes, and you don't have to carry another freaking adapter when you want to dump your cards to your computer. But it is an absolute beast. But even the base model, the M3 MacBook Pro 16-inch, it starts at $1599. So, it's a reasonable price point. A lot of people buying a new computer for work have no problem spending $2,000 plus. So $1,600 for an MacBook Pro 14-inch. It's a pretty good deal. If I hadn't just invested in the 13-inch MacBook Air M2, I would have considered this one, but I'm fine. I'm cool where I'm at. So that's the new things from Apple. I'm not going to go buy a brand new Mac day and date when it comes out. I don't care how many generations in. I just don't think it's a good idea to have not only the new Mac. That's not even what I'm worried about. It's the new OS. If you get a brand new Apple computer that comes out, then they start shipping November 7th. It's going to have Sonoma on it. You can guarantee it. That is the newest OS. And it's still not quite, we're not quite ready, folks. Give everybody some time to get used to the new version, find all its quirks and features, and the developers can find all the quirks and let everybody else deal with that before you put that into your production computer. If you have 2 computers, put it on the one you don't rely on to make a living with, if you really want to try it out.
Which is what I did with my MacBook Air. I'm like, I got to try this. Totally seamless.
It was if you don't use a lot of hardware and devices and you just really use it as a laptop with mostly web browser stuff and Apple software and stuff, you're probably fine. It's always the things, the surprises always come with hardware and like hardware drivers and like plugins. That's where things will sneak up on you. So in a totally different area, just a little update from Centrance. I've been getting, the occasional email or comment. Hey, what's going on with that audio interface that you helped kind of invent? Whose name I can't remember. Nobody seems to be able to remember the name of this thing. The Passport VO. Well, I did get an update from Michael, and I did encourage him to release this to the investors who have pre-purchased theirs. But he said, essentially, the good news is the prototyping machine is finally working and has assembled 2 of the boards so far. The boards are the circuit board inside the product. So they have their own in-house chip bot that will make the circuit board. And so he said, that means we won't need to rely on China so much. I don't know if that means they won't make any in China or if that's just for the prototype. Not sure on that one, but that's what I've got from them so far. They've drawn up all the analog schematics for the product. The last X factor is the USB chip for the product. He said, I asked a friend who lives in Taiwan to go down to see the manufacturer, and we're still waiting to hear the results of the evaluation. So there you go, TMI. But, this is what it takes to get a new product to market when certain things like your USB chip just vanishes into thin air. And you have to find a new chip and redesign the board and make it all over again. So that's what's up with the Passport VO. All right. Now I've got a little quick, I'm going to take a snippet from a 14-minute video, show you what I think may be one of the more interesting parts than some of you. This is going to feel like watching This Old House for a few minutes. This is a little clip from the factory tour that I took vocalbooth.com when I was up there a few weeks ago. And this is the segment where we start looking at the doors and how the doors are made. So let's take a look at this. Used for building those doors. Pretty serious piece of machinery. Mill. All right. This is the infamous door machine. Nate's going to demonstrate it for us. So he's rattering out the little tabs, the little plate where the plates go for the hinges. Does that first.
And you got to have 3 of those.
You got to have 3, and if the door is big enough, it might have 4.
And as you can see, this is a solid core door. Is it made out of oak, or what did they say it was made out of?
Actually, I didn't ask them what materials they make the doors out of, I don't know. They get the door blanks sent to them, right? They don't make the door blanks in-house. That's done somewhere else. But this huge machine, which was the first thing I'd really noticed when I walked into the facility, this and the plasma cutter, which they also have, this thing is cutting where the doorknob goes. It's got a Forstner bit thing that pokes through and just cuts that hole. That's all it does. And then on the bottom, there's another one punching the hole for the plunger. And that's all that thing does. It does one job. And then he goes on and he cuts the rest of the hinge plates. This is real time. It takes about 3 minutes to cut and mill all the different parts of the door. And this huge machine, they only have it because the door supplier that they were using for their doors closed their doors. And Calvin, the owner, I have another video, by the way, interviewing Calvin, you guys can check out on the George the Tech YouTube channel. He said, hey, can we buy that machine from you guys? And they did. So they have this very, very large machine that's just for precision milling all the parts of a door. Which I thought was obviously really fascinating and impressive piece of machinery.
Yeah. And the door is probably, when it comes to a vocal booth, probably one of the most important pieces of any particular soundproof booth, because without a solid core door and the right fittings and it fitting just right, it can make the whole thing worthless.
Another router underneath. So it's an upside down router. It's cutting the strike plate area.
Oh, I'm so glad you know the actual technical terms. There's the strike and the strike plate. Having done a lot of videos on how to install doors. So
Yeah, So there, that's done.
So that was the strike plate.
Yeah, that was the strike plate.
Strike plate. Yeah.
And then he drills the holes.
I use this drill to pre-drill for the hinges.
I love air drills, man. They're so fast.
No splitting or anything.
Sounds like the Indy 500.
I know, exactly. Air drills are the coolest.
That would have taken what, an hour or two, doing it completely manually? Like,
Probably, maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
I've actually worked for a couple of different door companies, and
Oh, you
there's
have?
different ways to do things. So
sure. These have always been one of the hardest things to get right in any construction job is the door.
yeah, gotten pretty good. I don't have too many problems with my assembled doors.
Yeah.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Nothing's more fun than trying to hang a door.
Well, I mean, Calvin made a good point as well. He said, listen, it's one thing to have this big heavy door. That's one thing. It's another thing to hang a big heavy door off of a thing that you assembled at home, and have it, the weight of that door when it swings wide open, that thing's pulling on the structure. All that force is pulling on the thing. It's essentially a flimsy door frame, is what it is, because you're just screwing. It's not framed and hung and mounted to the house. So it's even trickier to get those things dialed in, right? So yeah, I was really impressed by that. Really, really, really cool seeing that stuff being done in person. All right, well, that's it for my tech update. And Dan, we're talking about the cloud, the theory of the cloud?
No, it's the theory of the cloud panel. Now this is, and it's not even a theory. I mean, I call it a theory, but in working with a lot of people, and and how many of you are in a closet deliberately? And if you're in there, closets can be very different. I mean, every closet is different. I mean, there's a standard closet, there's a 12-inch or an 18-inch deep closet with a sliding door, and then there's a walk-in closet. You open a door and all your clothes are in there and stuff. And the ceiling is generally pretty high. Or if you're in a smaller closet, it's built into a wall that has a higher ceiling, and that ceiling is sort of like that big hole in a guitar. It creates a big acoustical space above you that is going to create bass reflex like you wouldn't believe. And it's going to sound like you're down the hallway or something along those lines. So one of the things that George and I have been doing with people is we've been creating what we call clouds. And what is a cloud? Well, if I use my camera here and I can actually go up and show you what a cloud looks like.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, look at that. Isn't that cool that I can do all that?
Yeah.
That is what clouds look like. They are panels that are made out of wood. They can be fiberglass or Roxul filled. And then I usually put like a backing of weed block behind it to keep the fiberglass or the Roxul installed. And see, goes right back to where it's supposed to. What a cloud does is, it's like a regular sound panel that will absorb sound and not let it reflect back to your microphone. But here's the theory about this that I find fascinating. That is, if you're in your booth and you go up and down, like try and go down on your knees or stand up really straight, you will find that as your mouth goes higher or lower inside that space, it will change the dynamic of the room. And if it's a very small room, it's going to really affect the sound. It's going to become very, very hollow sounding. So by hanging a cloud, you're doing a couple of things. One, you're reducing the upper area of the closet or the room you're in, so it's not going up into that chamber and reflecting all over the place and then coming back down. But here's the cool thing, because as I was just describing, going up and down and listening in your own ears how the sound changes depending on where in the particular booth you are, I came up with this idea that I was proven to be 1,000% correct because it just made sense. And that is, when you're hanging a cloud, make it adjustable. Maybe put it on a pulley. Maybe have having been a sailor and knowing an awful lot about pulleys and all that stuff, you can make something that is totally adjustable. So what we're trying to do is we want to create a sweet spot in your booth that will work every time. And if you're standing or sitting, you can adjust that cloud to maintain a consistent sound within your booth. And I know some booth manufacturers, and we've talked to them, and I'm like, why don't you put a cloud in here and make it adjustable? And they're like, we don't want to do that. Well, that's their problem because it works great in a closet. I just installed one in somebody's closet the other day, and it sounds sweet. And before I put it in, it sounded pretty sour. It was very, very reverberant, and it was... the thing is it has to be custom cut for that particular room. And if you've ever watched me measure something and cut it, maybe I'm not the one to be building those, but it's. I thought that was 21 inches. Why is it 23?
Carpentry is, it's a lot of work. I don't like making that stuff more than I have to either.
Yeah. I mean, I just made a clock out of a Zenith radio face, and I built a wooden frame with it and did it all by hand. You do it by hand, it looks like crap. So until you're really, really skilled at it.
Like
but
that
anyway,
door machine, not by hand.
You do it by
precision.
It's perfect. What do they say? Measure twice, cut once. That's right. So it's it's not perfect, but if you can get it, fitting inside and not necessarily really tightly, so you can get it so it moves up and down, it cuts off the angle of your voice and doesn't let it reverberate up in the upper chamber of the closet. And so that's something you might want to consider when you're building your home studio. Or if you have no idea what you're doing, what you do is you go over to one of our websites, homevoiceoverstudio.com, or over to georgethe.tech, and tell them what you want to tell us what you want to do, and we can help you out. But making one yourself is not that hard. I can build one with an electric staple gun in less than an hour, which is actually kind of cool considering the kind of space I have here to actually do that. Your thoughts, Mr. Whittam?
No, I agree totally. I mean, a sound cloud, or acoustic cloud, whatever you want to call it, it works so well. It does a very good job of dealing with a lot of issues in small spaces. It doesn't take up more wall space, so you can kind of use more wall space for other purposes. It can really, really make a dramatic improvement with, the hardest part really is just the physical hanging of it from the ceiling. That is the hardest part of the install. Other than that, absolutely worth the effort. No brainer.
Yeah. Toggle bolts are fabulous.
Yeah. Use those ones that there's like a plastic thing, you shove it in the hole and then it goes like dink. Yeah.
Holds it to the ceiling.
Yeah,
there are a lot of those in this studio, as George will attest to. And they're all still holding, so that's even better.
Yeah.
But if you put it up there with rings and the right type of rope, you can really make it very, very precise to make it sound exactly the way we want it to sound. So that's a good thing to know. And that's why I figured I'd talk about my cloud theory.
Love it. I love that you could show us too.
Yes. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break here. And if you have a question, we would like to see your questions here on Voice Over Body Shop Tech Talk, because that's why we're here. I see there's a bunch of people watching. I know you have questions, even if it's about, marriage difficulties or about your medical issues. Yeah. As long as it relates to voiceover, put it in the chat room right now, and Jeff Holman will get that to us. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back here on Voice Over Body Shop, so do not go away.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, and you are watching Voice Over Body Shop. It's great.
Oh, hi. If you live in a house and your voiceover studio is in that house, you don't want to disturb everybody else who's living in there. So what you need are good headphones that are made specifically for voiceover. And that's why we have Harlan Hogan's Signature Series Voice Optimized Headphones 2.0. What's so great about these? Well, one, they have a very flat response, so you only hear exactly what it is you sound like. Second, incredibly comfortable. Leather pads on the outside filled with memory foam, a really comfortable headband that really works with your head. The most important thing, you can wear them for long periods of time. That's really important. Where do you get them? Only at voiceoveressentials.com. That's voiceoveressentials.com. Just go there, look at the headphones, and get them now. Tell them we sent you. Thanks, Harlan.
All right. Well, it's time to talk about Source Elements, the creators of Source Connect and Source Nexus 2.0, which was just released very recently. And it provides a different set of tools that you're not probably accustomed to from Source Elements. Now, the Nexus thing's been around for a while. It's a virtual sound router for your computer, works on Windows or Mac, and allows you to take any audio source or destination on your computer, whether it be a Chrome web browser, Zoom, Skype, whatever it is. You can assign them their own unique sets of audio drivers. And what that allows those things to do is to communicate with other applications in the computer. And Nexus is basically the traffic cop. It's the Nexus. It's the intersection of all those things. But it also creates a driver so that any one of those sound sources or destinations can show up and become a plugin. The plugin in your multi-track software, whether you're using Pro Tools, Logic, Reaper, whatever you use, Nuendo for your post-production, can now allow those signals to stream in and out seamlessly. So if you're doing a Zoom or a Skype and you are producing and you need to get the talent in and the client listening in on their favorite Zoom platform, maybe they're using Google Meet or it's corporate and they have to use Teams from Microsoft, no worries. You have a way to get that audio in and out of the production smoothly to make everybody's life easier and make it work the way it feels like when they're all in the studio with you, which seems to happen so much less often. So if you want to learn more about Nexus, and of course, if you want to get Source Connect because you're starting to get the big job auditions coming in that say must have Source Connect, head over to source-elements.com and get started and tell them we sent you. We appreciate it. We'll be right back with your questions. Send them in right after this.
Well, hey there, it's David H. Lawrence with VO Heroes, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a very simple tool, drag and drop tool, that would guarantee that the audio you need to upload to ACX or any other audiobook platform is perfectly set up in terms of the text standards, the root mean square normalization, the peak normalization, the noise floor? Guess what? There is. And I want you to have it absolutely free. It's called Audio Cupcake, and you can find it at audiocupcake.com. I helped create this software. It was built to my specs and my standards for when I do audiobooks, and I know it's going to work for you. Now, it's only available for Macintosh because you Windows users, you have the ability to use other tools that work for you. But in this case, you edit your final raw WAV file for a chapter, you drop it onto Audio Cupcake, and out comes the 192K mono MP3 file you can upload immediately. That's audiocupcake.com. Audiocupcake.com. I hope you love it.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on The VoiceOver Body Shop.
All right, we're back here at VoiceOver Body Shop. Again, if you have a tech question for us, and it could be anything at all regarding your home voiceover studio, George and I will talk about it incessantly for hours on end. Anytime, I mean,
That's why you better ask some questions. Otherwise, we're going to just go off on a new
on
tangent.
and on and on and on and on. But we've got a couple of questions that we're going to get to in a minute here. But by the way, Jeff, what were you so angry? I see you going. What is Jeff Holman? Everybody,
I think he was talking to his agent.
We got to unmute you here. There you go.
Everything's fine. I just, it's just like George said, like that's my moment for the show, and I get a phone call right then. It's like, it's just,
All right.
Somebody's had a case of the Mondays.
Right. Anyway, if you've got a question, this is where it's going before it comes here. So if it gets kind of weird before then, now you know why. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right. Anyway, we have a couple of questions here. And again, just throw it in the chat room. George and I will be happy to answer your questions on your home voiceover studio or technology. We'll start off with the question from Jeff. Since he's in there, he gets priority because
that's right.
He's typing. He says, every time I hear artificially produced voices on YouTube videos, I think they sound like total crap. I won't use the word he used, but where are these great AI voices I keep hearing about? The canned tomato sauce of voiceover.
That's what I call it.
Yeah.
The reason why you're hearing all these like lousy voice models on YouTube is they're mostly extremely cheap or free. They're built into the freemium or free apps people are using. And that's why I just thought, I mean, when you mentioned that question, the idea of the canned tomato sauce comes to mind. Because listen, if you're a chef at a restaurant and you made pasta and you literally opened a can of tomato sauce, you would not be a chef for very long, right? Yeah, exactly. Those restaurants pride themselves on that sauce. They make the Sunday gravy, right? You make the best sauce you ever had. That's why you come back. For me, it's pizza, the best tasting sauce. Imagine if voice actors were to just be using an AI version of a voice, and that would be accepted as a great performance. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Is it good enough for at home to feed the kids? Yeah, that's what the canned tomato sauce is for.
Can of Chef Boyardee.
And it'll get them to shut up. Yeah, exactly. But you wouldn't dare share that with guests or like or at a restaurant, right? So that's the way I kind of look at it. Like these are just the canned tomato sauce voices that are cheap, free, built into the apps, and you're hearing them way too often now, right?
Yeah. I mean, we had PJ Ochlan on with us last week, and we were talking about this. I look at AI, and everybody's, it's getting better. It's all this, it's all that. I got quoted in Wired magazine a couple of weeks ago about AI voices, and which I was totally honored to be
World Voices, right?
Yeah, as president of World Voices, and they contacted me and said, do you have a comment? I'm like, as a matter of fact, I do. To me, I am convinced. And they'll tell me, it's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I hear it. That a computer cannot cry. A computer-generated voice cannot sigh. A computer-generated voice cannot laugh. Yeah, it can.
You can program it to do
You can program it to do those things, but it'll do it over and over and over again. And every time or at the end of a sentence, you'll hear, and then you'll hear the exact same breath throughout the entire thing. Or if you're watching something like Ancient Aliens, which we've been sort of hooked on, but it's an AI voice because ancient alien theorists, suggest it's the same intonation constantly, and it is perfect every time.
No variation.
There's no variation. It actually gets kind of
drony.
Yeah, a little bit. And but they said the horseless carriage will never take off, but. What did we know? Look, as technology changes, human beings do what human beings do. We adapt. Mm-hmm. And if you're a voice actor and you see a change in the industry like that, make the changes in your marketing to show people that you're a human being and that you can laugh and that you can sigh and you can cry. I'm sorry, a computer can't do it. It cannot replace humans. Not totally.
I mean, I just saw an incredible musical artist last night, Pat Metheny. Mm-hmm. He's a renowned jazz guitar player.
A legend, yeah.
His tone is unique. His style of playing is unique, and it crosses borders between classical and jazz, and it's just incredible. He's one of the most amazing guitar players alive, right? And on stage, he had at least 9 different guitars. He had some of them covered in a black duvetine, so you didn't see it till the last second. He'd pull it off and then play it. He had this huge, crazy automated instrument that he created a few years ago that he triggers from his guitar, and it's playing mallets and bells and drums. I mean, it is just an unbelievable thing. And the thing is, that is entertaining.
Right.
It's real equipment making real sound in a real space
by a human.
By a human. Yes, you could program all of that in a computer. You could sequence it, and you could walk on stage and hit a play button, right? In fact, I actually saw an artist 6 months ago where it was the weirdest thing. The lead singer guy basically yells at the audience, and the musician has a laptop, and at the beginning of each song, he hits play, and then he dances around. It was the weirdest freaking thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
It was called Sleaford Mods. Anyway, my point I'm getting at.
Hire the human.
People still are going to want to see humans, be human, do human things, share human experiences, listen to human voices. Yes, there's always going to be a place where AI voice comes in, and yes, it's going to get better. Just like synthesizers came and changed a lot of music, just like, there's a lot of things that have been substituted in over the years, but it's not going to replace it. It's not gonna. It's not gonna. And I keep saying this, it's going to be more work to make the fake version sound real than it will be for a real person to provide the real voice. It's going to take more time, more programming. It's going to be more difficult. So humans win.
Absolutely.
Humans win.
Humans win. Computers 0. All right. Justin Ramos asked a question. He says, regarding the cloud thingies, these guys up here, any problem regarding earthquake safety? Nah, unless you're living in I think earthquake-wise, first off, if you're in Los Angeles, it's not a problem. Nothing breaks here. They're making everything out of wood. It just goes.
Everything's designed to handle that, but I guess don't use good quality hooks, gun. Good anchors. The things are going to swing around on the ceiling, and that's probably fine. I don't know if I'd want to be underneath one in a major earthquake. If they were swinging around over my head, I might consider leaving the room. But I don't think you're going to have too much to worry about. But interesting question.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you set it up right, if you've got a couple of anchors in there, if the whole ceiling doesn't fall down, it's not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's made out of soft stuff, except for the frame. So if the frame doesn't hit you, it's like getting hit on the head with a pillow.
As long as it's not the very edge of the frame.
Right. And on to a different subject from the same questioner with the same sort of question. Justin asks, speaking of clouds, cloud storage recommendation for backups of auditions, etc. What do you think, George?
Clever. I'll just tell you what I use. I use O-Drive, which is a way to synchronize and move files between your computer and different cloud storages. So it works with O-Drive. It works with Google Drive. It works with Dropbox, and that's what I'm using it with, is those two services. And it just makes it easier for me to have more than one Google Drive account synchronizing to my computer at the same time. So that's what I use. All of my work exists on Google Drive, right? So that is my file syncing, file sharing, cloud backup, all wrapped up into one bundle, right? It's there. If it's in those folders, it's backed up, it's in the cloud. If I have to run out of my house with my laptop and my girlfriend and my wallet, I'll get all my work back because I can download that again from the cloud. So that works for me. Dan, what do you do?
Same. I use, as much problem as Google is getting themselves in, troubles Google's getting themselves into in different places. Google Drive works great.
Yeah.
It's, you just set up your folders. It's there. It makes it easy to share them. But I also use iCloud, which is why when I open my laptop in the house, everything that was ever on my desktop suddenly appears on there. I'm like, I don't want that stuff. And you start moving it around and stuff. But iCloud is great for, saving the stuff that is actually, the downloads in your computer and stuff like that. But for transferring files, because you can make them huge, G Drive works just great. And it's not expensive to have a couple of terabytes of G Drive. And totally worth it if you're moving a lot of files. Otherwise, you don't really want to store them on your machine.
Don't think of a file just sitting on your computer as permanent.
Exactly.
We like to say if it doesn't exist in at least two places at once, consider that it doesn't exist at all.
Right. Unless you put it on a CD-ROM.
Right, right.
If you happen to have a CD-ROM burner, which, if you have a 1911 or 2011 computer, you might actually
I do
have
still
one.
use a Time Machine hard drive. So, I mean, just an external laptop-sized hard drive plugged into my computer to do another backup onto the physical disk. And I haven't had to restore from one of those in a very long time. Maybe I've been lucky. But haven't had to worry about that at all. So
OSs are just incredibly stable now. You think they figured out how to make them now? So they're
they're stable. I mean, the physical memory chip that stores everything can fail.
When's that going to happen?
That happened in the early days of flash storage 10 plus years ago.
Yeah,
it was more common. It is very uncommon nowadays. You need an EMP. Electronic or EPM, what is it? Electronic pulse weapon or something?
Yeah, if somebody drops a nucler bomb over your house, your hard drive is the least of your concerns. Because there ain't no coming back from a nuclear attack.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, Okay, so we got another question. You get it, George, from Dave.
From Dave. Just upgraded a mid 2012. He just upgraded a 10-year-old MacBook Pro just now from stock to two 1 terabyte solid state drives. Good move. 16 gigabytes of memory. Good move. A new battery, and it's a 2.5 megahertz Core i5. It's like a mid-level MacBook Pro. Do you think this can be a decent backup laptop for the road? Yeah, of course. I mean, the thing is, once it's a 2012 or older, really if it's a 2015 or older, you're going to start running into web browser compatibility problems. Certain things are just not going to work on that system. Browsers won't stay up to date any longer. There's going to be some issues, and it's not because of the hardware. It's because of Apple just rolling out new machines and sunsetting the old ones and stopping supporting the old ones with the newer OSs. And it kind of rolls, it's like this time of year when the new OS comes out, something just lost support. So I think maybe that was High Sierra, maybe Mojave is kind of the end of the road, in terms of getting support and staying supported and current. So yes, it'll work. If you just need a computer to travel with and record, that's technically overkill with all those specs, but it'll work fine. He says, can I get a second Twisted Wave license on it? Yes. When you own a Twisted Wave license, you can install it on as many computers as you want.
Which is actually very different from a lot of other platforms.
Yeah. Either have one or two or 5 limit. I mean, maybe limit of 5
like
or something.
Right. And it's great because then you've got it on one computer. It makes it easy to transfer to the other, and you're working in the same environment. And Twisted Wave's great software. So,
and just for relative speed, he made a little observation. Even with all those upgrades, the faster storage, the more memory, it's still 1/6 the speed of the M1 storage or performance. I don't know if he means the speed of storage or the speed of the computer, but the M1s are dramatically faster, no doubt about it. Yeah. The storage on the silicon chips, because everything's unified into one small chip, the storage is lightning fast, which at the end of the day, that's what makes a computer from a day-to-day use case. Just opening the apps, loading files, saving things, exporting this, that's the speed of that storage is what you're going to notice. That is what makes the computer feel extremely snappy. That's what keeps you from seeing the spinning pinwheel all the time. That's what you're really going to notice more than anything, I think. So, it's a good experience for most people, and keep an old machine around as a backup. I do the same. I just, believe it or not, I took my old backup computer that I gave to my daughter. She's like, this thing stinks, Dad. It's slow. So I gave her my 2019 MacBook Pro, which is a very base model, right? And I cleaned it and put her system on it. She's fine. She's happy as a camper. I took her old MacBook Air 2015 and I wiped it and installed my user account on it. and it's fine. Like it still works fine. Yes, it's slow, but it will still do basic things. And if I need to run an Intel specific thing, like I have a Windows version on there, it runs. Windows 32, what is it? Windows 7, Windows 7.
Whatever.
Oh my God, Windows 7. It will actually run on that old Intel Mac, and it won't run on my new one. So I still keep it around.
Very cool. Use a Mac. I mean, a lot of people out there are, like, oh, I'm a PC person. That's fabulous. If you're good at that, I'm going to get that Skeeter. I'm telling you, this guy.
Hey, we support Windows over at George the Tech. We've got a few on our team who are very Windows centric.
Yep.
Even the ones that are the most experienced, still, we run into technical brick walls where it's like, I don't know why it's glitching.
What's going on there?
It's like, it just, at the end of the day, I don't want to be the guy who says, why don't you try getting a Mac? Because people on Windows hate being told to try a Mac. It just makes them crazy. And okay, whatever the reasons maybe you have some political reason you don't like Apple. I don't know. But it just is proven to be a great, stable, easy to use, well-supported platform for creating media, which is what we do.
Which is what it's really designed for. I mean, like PCs are great for doing spreadsheets, and they're great for maybe doing some graphic work and stuff like that. Yeah, and definitely for gaming. Do not game on a Mac unless you can. But for voiceover, nothing is simpler than a Mac. You don't want all these different variables in the operating system, and Macs just are really designed for creatives like us, and that's why
antivirus scanners running all the time.
Absolutely, no one's infected my computer. Now, of course, someone's going to attack it today, but
that would end up the Monday night sleep, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. After the show, you can hack my computer after the show.
Please wait.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it for most of the questions tonight. Thanks for all of those. Again, if you want to write to us and you've got a question, let me get the right banner up there so I can show you exactly what it is you're supposed to write to. You write to the guys at VOBS.TV. How do you like that? If you write to that address and you have a question for us, any time of the week, you wake up in the middle of the night going, what about this interface I've got? Write to us at the guys at VOBS TV, and we'll be happy to answer it on our next show.
Your head sounded like a suction cup on a glass wall.
Don't make me do that again.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's an important thing to know. If you've got a question, you can always ask one of us.
Come ask.
Yes. So anyway, I'm going to catch this
thing
mosquito.
up?
We should wrap it up into a nice tight little ball and get rolling here. So don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages to wrap things up and make it more important to you, because we'll be talking about you. We'll be right back here on VoiceOver Body Shop, so do not go
Catch
away.
that Skeeter.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Rocky, the voice of
Rocco, and you're watching VoiceOver Body Shop.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
All right, it's time for me to talk about a great product, a great website, and that is voiceactor.com. Yes, voiceactor.com. An affiliate of voiceactorwebsites.com. Now, what do they do over at voiceactor.com? They have templated websites. If you've tried to build your own website using Wix, or you're trying to do things with HTML and WordPress or one of the, there's a lot to learn. We have taken that problem out of the equation because a templated website gives you all sorts of options, different designs, different ways to present your name, your demos, and your contact information, which is by far the most important stuff that you can have on your website. And you can change the background picture, you can change the colors, you can add anything you want, and it's all menu-driven, not code-driven. And what they've been able to do is the technology has been updated, so everything is just a menu, a drop-down. Okay, use this color, use that. Is it simple? Yes. Do you need something complex to show that you're a great voice actor? What you want to show as a voice actor is what you sound like and how to contact you. And that's really the most important thing. Other people spend 6 months designing the perfect website, and in 2 years, it's out of date already. Or it's too elaborate. You don't want people going in there and going all these different places. They want to see your name, they want to hear your demos, and they want to know how to contact you. That's what your website is for. So go over to voiceactor.com and get yourself a website really, really quick, like in 20 minutes. So go over to voiceactor.com right now.
We are the World Voices Organization,
Also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
And to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
A supportive and creative community.
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
Our exclusive demo player for your personal website.
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library.
Our annual WovoCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network.
Webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
Make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
we speak
for those
who speak for a living.
This is Ariana Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
All righty. Unmute. We're unmuted, aren't we?
We're unmuted, and we're
Okay.
mixed up. I'm mixing us back up again. There we go.
No, okay. Is that the way you're going to be? No, we're going to switch it around again. All right.
Okay.
Having fun with the switcher. Okay, let's go back to where we usually are. Okay.
Hey.
Technology. It's fascinating trying to direct this and catch a mosquito at the same time, I must say. Anyway, thanks for watching tonight. It's always fun doing this show, and Mr. Whittam, it is always a pleasure doing it with you.
Thanks. It's fun.
Next week, Jeff, why can I never remember his last name?
Howell?
Jeff Howell will be our guest.
Hey, don't laugh. I'm amazed I pulled that name out of my butt too. I'm just as amazed as you are.
I'm taking the lion's mane. It actually is helping a little bit.
Okay, good to know.
Lion's mane coffee.
This is a mushroom.
It's
like
a
cordyceps. Blah, blah, blah.
It's a good kind of mushroom. It's not, like one of those things that will send you off to another planet.
Hey,
but anyway,
what's wrong with that?
That's true. Anyway, if you want to work with one of us, we have to remind you once again that if you want to work with me, you just go on over to homevoiceoverstudio.com and put in your specimen in my specimen cup, and for $25 I'll give your stuff a listen. Or you can go over to
GeorgeThe.tech.
All right.
And you can head over to the /VOBS landing page to be reminded what our coupon code is, which is VOBSFan10.
All right.
10% off anything on the website.
All right. Let's see here. Are you still selling the studio bricks in the vocal booth?
Oh, yeah, we do. We have a vocalbooth.com diamond, the diamond-shaped one for sale still here in actually belonged to Atlas Talent.
Oh,
it's out there. They don't need it anymore. They don't have actors come in.
So they shoved it in your closet?
No, it's still there. Thank goodness. It's still there. It's just over in Playa Vista near Marina Del Rey. And you can come check it out. Yeah, email me, george@georgethe.tech. And we also have 2 Studio Bricks booths for sale that our producer, Sue, is helping us get sold. And so, again, just email me if you're interested in finding out more about those Studio Bricks booths that are for sale. There's some pretty big ones.
Ooh, and those are the
twice
nice
as
ones.
big as this one.
Right. Oh, wow. And the small ones are nice, too. So anyway, we need to thank our donors of the week, and you can donate to our show by going to our page. If you're already there, it says VOBS.TV. Right underneath all that stuff, it says Donate Now.
Mm-hmm.
Click on that, and you can get $1 a month. Be fabulous. It all adds up. It makes us sound like public radio, but we're better than that. We give you stuff you actually need and not anything spun a certain way except our way. But we need to thank our donors of the week, like Greg Cooper,
Grace Newton,
Christopher Epperson,
Robert Leadham,
Steve Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Thomas Pinto,
Greg Thomas,
A Doctor Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
949 Designs,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Rob Ryder,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall,
Maria Mackus,
and Sandra Manwiller. Also, we need to thank our amazing sponsors like Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials,
Voiceover Extra,
Source Elements,
VeroHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com, and WorldVoices.org, WOVO, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. Yes, I am in charge of that right now for the next year or so. We're making lots of changes. It's going to be a great organization with some great benefits for people. So go over to world-voices.org and join up. We need to thank Mr. Jeff Holman. Where's the Jeff Holman? There it is. Yeah, Jeff Holman. Mm-hmm. And there he is. Jeff Holman. See, it's like B.J. Liederman. They have to mention it every Saturday morning on National Public Radio. But there he is.
Check it out.
There we go. He is in all sorts of stuff. He's
but
making
hire him.
Absolutely.
Go to find him at imdb.me/Jeff Holman. 1 L, 1 M, 1 N.
Okay, very good. Thanks for all your help in the chat room tonight. Sue Merlino, we thank you for just being Sue because she's got a real bad back problem and she could not help us out tonight. So I've been doing all the switching and doing the best I can. Of course, Lee Pinney, simply for being Lee Pinney. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for tuning in. You know, voiceover is a very difficult entrepreneurial freelance business. You got so much you got to learn. One of the most important parts is, do you sound good? But we found that if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop.
Or VOBS. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. All righty. Have a good week, everybody. We will see you next time here at Voiceover Body Shop.